So when I say crazy and I talk about it permeating every inch of our regular day-to-day lives, does that come across to you as a true statement? Well, think about it. Not just the politics like I talked about, but what about your love life, your relationships? How easy is it for you? What about your work life? What about the way systems work? Just think about for a moment that we are in the most advanced, wealthy, technological time in human history. The capabilities we have now are literally stuff that people dreamed of. But we are at a time, and especially in the most advanced and developed nations in the world, where we're not having families, where we're not having relationships, where we're sad and unhealthy and lonely when we have access to everything we have ever wanted and then some. Sounds kind of crazy. What do I mean by that is that would sound different than the story you believe that we should be. That's because the model and what you believe we should be is not where we are. We live in narratives and in stories that are unexamined, and that is why these things feel crazy. Our experience and how we handle crazy is what makes these things bad, because we don't know what we're doing. So, for example, relationships. Why are we alone? Why are we unhappy? Well, the world we live in teaches us many different things about how we're different from each other. Men and women are from different planets, different cultures, different everything. Everybody has different roles they have to play. Then you live in a real world where everybody has to work very, very hard in order to just put food on the table, keep lights on. It changes the structure of your day-to-day life. It's not that simple. It's not as simple as the story would make it. We are not taught about how to love one another, even ourselves. We're not trained in any of these things because it is assumed that we just inherently have the knowledge, that it is just something that will magically make sense, even though, for most part, most of those ideas are only explored through media, stories, not even things that your friends and family would talk about. Why is that an issue? Well, if you're a creature of active inference, you build your understanding of the world from those things, from your interactions. So if you believe that you're supposed to be loved instantaneously, that there's supposed to be chemistry, that XYZ, that it's supposed to be more Disney-esque than anything else, well, guess what? You're probably not going to be the best person to be in a relationship with, and you're probably not going to find the best people to be in a relationship because you're basing your understandings of the world, love, and relationships on fantasy, on stories. Most of us do that. I've done it. It's not anything you need to feel bad about. What you can do is understand that that's where your experience of crazy is. That maybe people will love you for who you are if you can love yourself. A lot of us are not even capable of doing that, but we have this expectation from the other person that is, if we don't even have it for ourselves, there's going to be a problem. We don't understand what these things are in depth, and we suffer because of it. Other people suffer because of it. And we try to solve it with simple things like apps and subscriptions and services and other capitalistic ideas that don't really seem to solve the problem. Because maybe some of these people, and maybe a lot of these people who are looking for dates, are not even really date worthy anymore. Because we are making ourselves kind of messed up people who are so self centered and isolated in our own views of the world that we're not able to really mesh with others unless they fall right in line with us. We're building that. We're making that because we don't understand what crazy is, and that feeling and that sense of when something does not match our reality. And then that's how we end up shaping ourselves into what we are today. Because we don't look at it through that. We don't look at it through that lens because it doesn't match the stories, because that in and of itself sounds a little crazy. And so we put it off to the side and we keep moving forward because what everybody else is doing, if they're doing it, is probably true. And that's one of the reasons and one of the ways that we work the way we do, up to and including how we raise our kids. There's a book, The Coddling of the American Mind. It talks about how a lot of the things that we do for our children now change the way they grow up and who they are. And I can think of it. I grew up, I'm 40 years old. I would walk to school. I had a very different experience. I did stuff outside after class. And then we had people would complain about kids who were only staying at home and watching TV. Now you have kids who don't go out at all. They've never walked to school a single day in their life. They don't know how to go up to a counter. We change the way they work and live and interact with their world. We change the people they become. We create people who seem more crazy because they create isolated, walled little worlds of their own that cannot happily and healthily integrate with the outside world. And they suffer for it. And we all collectively suffer for it. And it's everywhere in a small little tidbits of all of our life because we do not understand how we work. And when we experience something that is different from how we believe it should be, we experience it generally more as a threat than as a signal of like, oh shit, maybe I have something to learn. Obviously, there's a multitude of ways in which we can experience crazy. That you're a worker and you bust your ass, and that no matter what, it doesn't seem like the system is working for you. That the world that you believe should be there does not seem to match up, and you experience crazy, and in all the different ways it can. It's up to you to determine: is it your model of the world or is it the world? We have to stop assuming it's the world. That's where our failings start. That's why dogshit people can come into power. That is why the systems we have work the way they do, more because we are afraid of that challenge. We're not willing to look at it in that way. And we just allow it to continue. Just think about it logically when it comes to American politics. Both sides can't be right. You can't have both sides say that the other guy is the devil and that they're going to ruin the country. In the last 25 years, the sides keep flipping. Nothing good ever really ends up happening as it is told. If you really pause and you look at everything, the stories do not add up at all. Why? Steve, how could that be? That sounds crazy. Yeah. You know why it's crazy? Because we're too busy with our nonsense screaming at each other. Radicalization. And we're seeing it. Our systems are not working as described. And one of the key reasons I'm doing this and doing the show is because I know for a fact in the next couple of years that there are going to be immense challenges to our systems, government, economics. And real people like you and me are going to be the ones that are carrying the burden, not these motherfuckers who are supporting. That's the point. We get so lost in feeling that we're bigger than what we are because we're playing a role for a bigger thing that does not exist. They're roles written by people in power to maintain power. And that's why it feels crazy when other people are arguing and when somebody wins and nothing happens and then you have to get into the next argument. You have to continue this constant cycle of war, this fake war, because otherwise, if you stop, you realize that you're being forced into an act with everybody else and that you're kept there because of the sense of crazy, because of this unknown, unprocessed, untaught feeling. Instead of you realizing that the other guys are just as confused as you are taught to hate them, to fall in line with your people. And it's not that you're sat in a class. You don't need to be. You're taught invisibly through the world. And if you understood and you were taught how active inference, embodied cognition, and the extended mind work, you would see that. You wouldn't be so fooled into this. It would make sense. But you're not. And I guess I'm crazy for noticing that. That's the natures of the systems. That's how we work. And I know people are going to go, oh, you can't just poo-poo all the systems and shit on everything. And no, the point is that we have to identify that there's problems with stuff, including ourselves and how things work, because with extended mind, the outside world is almost as important as your actual wiring. The people that you interact with, the systems that we interact with, school, education, government, media, shape us individually, and we shape it. But we don't have the same level of control on the systems. They govern us. We're sold things through the sense of crazy. What do you mean, Steve? Well, why do you think there's dating apps? Because there's a opening in the market. There's an opening in the market because society makes us empty and incapable of forming relationships in an easy, normal way. We do not have community groups like we used to. We don't work reasonable hours. We don't live in communities like we used to. So that's why the system has an opportunity. Am I crazy for viewing it that way? Maybe. But the point is that I'm willing to take a look at things through different angles, not just what I believe it should be. That's empowerment. That's moving past experiencing something as crazy. Because I don't need to. I don't need to devalue things that do not fall in line with what I believe to be true. If I'm doing that, I am following a path of narrative. I am more trying to make myself feel better than actually understand the thing. And that's one of the failings. That would be crazy. If I really don't want to be crazy, if I don't want to facilitate that, then I need to be mindful of that. I don't need to try to impose what I believe it should be versus trying to understand what it is. 9 times out of 10, when you see it for what it is, you don't need to make it a threat. You realize you were making it a threat to make yourself feel better, not to protect yourself. Protect your ego, protect your psyche, not your actual literal self. And that's how we can all be governed around by the nose, like fools, following one puppet to another. That's the reality. And if you sense that what I'm saying is a deep threat because you're experiencing crazy, you think what I'm saying is crazy because you have a model of the world that is counter to that, which is fine. You're allowed to feel that way. You're allowed to believe that way. What you're not allowed to do is undermine everything else to make yourself feel better, because then you are the problem.